absolute favorite songs. Here it is, a groove slightly transformed. Here it is. I tell you one thing right now. I got Chris dollar in my pocket. Somebody can tell me what song that is the opening line to.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard it? This is my jam.
Last summer, try to hear that song.
This is your dollar. Oh, damn, if I word. Here it is.
Go get your dollar.
Give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. Listen here. Wake up. Wake up. I'm trying to tell you, wake up. Watch this. Here it is, the groove slightly transformed. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, also known as Will Smith. Will Smith before he got on stage and never mind. So,
yeah, they're free.
In the 80s, they were a dynamic duo in the hip-hop industry. One of the first in that genre to win a Grammy Award. And that song topped the charts. It was one of those songs that reminds me, like, we're kind of getting into these summer, warmer months right now. And the way that I grew up, when I hear that song, it almost kind of, I just instantly start to smell barbecue, ribs, charcoal, Kingsford. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Maybe just a little bit. I can almost smell it. That particular song, it takes me there every single time. And when they open up that song and they say, here it is, a groove slightly transformed, besides it being the opening line, they're telling you something. It's actually a metaphor. Here it is, a groove slightly transformed, meaning that the groove that you are listening to is a remix. It's not an original. They took a groove and literally transformed it. They took a song that already existed and they manipulated it just a little bit to make it something new, to make it something better in some people's opinions. Anybody have any ideas to what that original melody might be? Cool in the Gang, I owe you another dollar. Yes, sir. Listen. Is that a familiar? No, just a little bit. Cool in the Gang. This is like music my dad used to listen to. He would sit me down and we'd have our life lessons with something like this playing in the background. But what DJ Jackson Jeff and the Fresh Prince did, they took this groove, they sped it up, they added a melody to it, they added a beat, they added some rhyme, and they transformed it into what became Summertime. Am I making sense? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. So my objective here is to help you take the groove of teaching and learning, education in your learning environment, and do what? Slightly transform it. Whether you might be in the role of a paraprofessional, support personnel, educator, transition specialist, whatever it may be, executive director, superintendent, and everybody in between, you have an important task because you pour into and serve children. And what you do is critical. There is absolutely no other profession on the face of this earth. No other profession on the face of this earth, as an educator that literally creates other professions, that literally pours into everyone in some way, shape, or form, like you are that important. It's easy to forget that. It is very, very easy to forget that, especially, can I be honest for just a second? Mm-hmm. It's especially very easy to forget that coming off the heels of the tumultuous times that we've had the unfortunate opportunity to experience. But with that, we've learned a lot of valuable lessons, not the least of which how important it is for us to be together right now. I mean, this conference could have been over Zoom. Would that have been better? Would y'all like this, something like this over Zoom? We could have did it. I could be in my office right now speaking to you in your home, in the comfort of your own home via Zoom. Why not? Because it's important that we be together. And that's one of the recurring themes that I want you to understand, and how this influences student behavior, how this influences behavior management, because we are creational and relational beings. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask you a question. With being an educator, classroom management, behavior management is one of the most difficult aspects. Would you agree? Yes. Why?
Because it's unpredictable.
If you don't have it, you can't teach. I heard somebody say variables. Who said that? So many things. That is right. There are so many things, too many variables to count. So many things. Another person, someone else. Why is classroom management so difficult? Different personalities, absolutely. Why is classroom management so difficult?
Kids come with trauma.
Everything doesn't work for everybody, and I heard something over here. Say that one more time. Lack of support, interesting. Yeah, all valid reasons, all very, very valid reasons. Let me ask you another question. Do you know what the largest contributing factors to classroom management issues are?
Individuals.
Home environment, okay. Trauma, interesting, okay. What do you think? Say again. Phones, what else? Distractions, technology.
Downtime.
Inadequate knowledge, lack of training.
Yeah.
Can I run a statistic by you really quickly? So let me show you something. When it comes to behavior management issues, I want to run something by you, but before I do that, let me show you this interesting thing that somebody brought to my attention. Regardless of the capacity that you serve in the learning environment, okay? Let's just say support personnel, teacher, whatever it may be. When students come into your learning environment, let's say the topic of the day is math. When they don't know math, what do you have to do? You have to teach it, correct?
Immediate.
Talk to me, you have to teach, okay? So when students come into your learning environment and they don't know science, what do? Teach. It's pretty simple, right? When students come into your learning environment, they don't know grammar, ELA, what do? Teach. When they don't know how to behave, what do?
Shouldn't. I was about to say you should teach, but you reprimand.
That's what happens. When students come into our learning environment and they do not meet our behavior expectations, the go-to instead of teaching is punishment. It's punitive consequences. Before I get too further into this, let me just step back for a second because she read a wonderful biography and introduction to me, but let me help you understand who it is that you're talking to. One of my favorite poets, a gentleman by the name of Shaun he wrote this song and he said, "Allow me to reintroduce myself." So let me step back for just a second. The reason I'm up here, the reason I am here to offer some words of wisdom and to just kind of help guide and shape some thinking as you move forward is because I spend a lot of time in the classroom. I am not somebody up here who is trying to tell you what it is that I think might work. I'm not somebody that is up here trying to tell you what it is that I read about that if you try it, it might work for you, not having done it myself. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
So, I spent 10 years in the K-12 environment, 5 years as a university professor, 15 years as a researcher all that time. And there are a couple of things that I've come to find out. Some of the things that will be very helpful to you. Some of these things that we may not even be aware of. One of the things that I find is very difficult, I'm just going to move around, I like to move around, don't mind me. One of the things that I find that is actually very sad is that for many of us in the learning environment, we come into the learning environment unprepared. Every single one of us in some way, shape, or form has had some sort of training and preparation to serve students. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah.
Yet, we still get into the classroom and are met head on with circumstances that are just like, what the heck am I doing here? Can I be honest?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Well, part of it is that from the way that the education, teacher preparation programs, support personnel preparation programs, the way that they're developed based off of Department of Education mandates. Department of Education mandates created from people who did not, guess what, teach. Surprise, surprise. So now we have our wonderful university systems that are preparing educators to get into the classroom to struggle. It's a direct correlation. Now what I want to do is help you fill some of those gaps, because some of those gaps are what it's going to be, or what it's needed to kind of take you to close that gap of where you are and where you hope to be. That's what I want to do. I want to fill that gap for you today with some of this information. Did you know that statistically speaking, 95% of classroom management issues in the United States of America, 95% are three broad categories. 95%. Three broad categories: disruption, defiance, and disrespect. 95%. I'm not talking about weapons, violence, drugs, anything of that nature. Defiance, disruption, and disrespect. Now let me ask you a question. What do those three things have in common? Defiance, disruption, and disrespect. Besides starting with the letter D. Interaction with teachers and paraprofessionals, absolutely. What else? What do they have in common?
I have choice.
Do the opposite of what you might expect or want them to do. Oppositional behavior. What else? Anger. What else? They're all reactions. Good.
Lack of relationship.
Distraction because they don't know the material or they can't do the math, so they cause a disruption so it doesn't look like they're done.
They can't do something, so they intentionally cause a disruption to take the attention away from the fact that they may not know. And you said, what, sir?
Poor relationships.
Poor relationships. All very good answers. Let me offer you a recurring theme to just shift your thinking about this a little bit. When we talk about defiance, when we talk about disruption, when we talk about disrespect, each and every one of those categories is very broad and they're also very subjective.
Yeah.
Meaning that the definition changes depending on who you ask. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard a student say, well, I could do that in Miss So-and-so's class? Ray, just show me hands if you've ever heard
Lord,
that
yeah.
at any point in your life.
Yeah.
Mr. So-and-so lets me do that. That's at the root of that. Because what is considered defiant depends on who you ask. What is considered disruptive? It just depends on who you ask. What is considered disrespectful? What's the answer?
Depends.
I brought a guest with me today. Do me a favor, say hello to Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan.
Is that how you preach your students? Oh my gosh. Maybe I caught you off guard. Say hello to Jonathan. Hey, thank you so much. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Hey, need it. All right, so let me help you understand something about my student, Jonathan. Jonathan is one of my former students. Jonathan is one of my former middle school students. Jonathan is one of my former middle school students that when he stepped into my classroom, how do I say this? He made me earn every bit of my paycheck. I'll let you read between the lines on that one. I know you don't have any students like that here in Cleveland, but I'm sharing my story. So, Jonathan was one of my spark plugs. And as I got to know Jonathan, we began to develop a relationship. And I actually was able to get a lot of things out of Jonathan some of his previous teachers could not. Jonathan was one of those students that his reputation preceded him. Maybe it didn't, I know this doesn't happen here. I'm just sharing my story. You know how you look at that roster at the beginning of the year? Man, you see that last name, and it's one of the Williams brothers or something. I know you don't have those students here in Cleveland. I'm just sharing my story with you. So from the moment he stepped into my learning environment, I knew what it was going to be. Fast forward the next year, right? Jonathan has a new set of teachers. And so I'm in my classroom one day, and I have my ream of paper. We were on rations, so we got a particular amount of paper per month. I hadn't made it to the end yet. I had about 50 copies left. I was on my way to go get my last 50 copies. Walking down the hallway, and I see a colleague of mine about 2 or 3 doors ahead of me. She sticks her head out of the learning environment. Policy says that you are not supposed to leave that learning environment. Technically, she didn't. 1 foot was still in there. And so she kind of just leaned out like this and was looking for the nearest person. She didn't say anything particularly, but her face told me everything I needed to know. Her face, clear as day, said, "Help me." I'm a nice guy. What's going on? And as I approached the classroom, I could hear foolishness. I'm wondering, is somebody hurt? Is there a fight? What's going on? Her exact words, "He won't listen to me." So as I get in, I step into the threshold and I see my former student Jonathan. I just see him. He's just dancing, shooting jump shots, having a good time. Poor Miss Green is in tears. I said, "Miss Green, hold on. What happened? Help me understand what is going on. What am I looking at here? This is not math." He came into that room, she said, and went from 0 to to 100 real quick. Having had him the year before, I knew exactly what she was dealing with. So I took that as an opportunity to intervene. I'm a nice guy. Stepped right into the doorway and just stood there for just a second. Waited. As soon as he saw me, he froze. I just gestured. My finger communicated to him, come here. But my eyes tried to pierce through his narrow soul. Get your little arm over here right now. And he complied because he knew he was not meeting the expectations that I had for him, the teacher had for him, the school had for him, and his parents. He was not one of those students that is coming from a damaged home. He was not one of those students who insert any number of variables who students like to use as an excuse. He was not one of those. He chose violence that particular day. The question was why? What I want to help you understand with taking this groove and slightly transforming it is what is at the root. See, in this profession, a lot of times we get really, really, really good at treating the symptoms. You know what the difference between a symptom is and root cause? We get awesome results from treating symptoms, but guess what? Does the problem come back?
Yeah.
Every single time. What I want to help you identify are the root causes. Somebody say roots.
Roots.
The root causes of some of these issues and how we can begin to deal with them. Take out something to write with. I just want to get your opinion on something. When you have a sheet of paper, notebook, you're going to need a couple of things to write down.
Alrighty. That'll be right.
I want to show you something, and I just want to get your opinion. It's a very simple question. What do you see? I want you to take a look at this picture and just give me your best guess. Let me paint a picture for you. Let me give you some context, okay? So imagine you're at your school. And your school has had the opportunity to be upgraded. The baseball field behind the school has an opportunity for an upgrade. And so now, because of a wonderful donation, construction company comes, they start to dig to make room for the new bleachers, for the new infield, for the new batting cages, everything. It's top of the line. So a lot of construction has to happen. As they start to dig, they find a lot of old rocks. One of them has what appears to be a set of footprints. Very simple question. What do you think could have happened to cause that? I want you to write your response down. Very simple question. Once again, your school, your building, the place at which you serve, has an opportunity for an upgraded baseball field. Large donations, so the construction company comes in and they start digging. They start digging, making way for everything that is going to be built there. And as they're digging, they come across some old rocks. One of those rocks has what appears to be a set of footprints. What do you think could have happened to cause those footprints? Please write down your response. I want to encourage you as you are writing, not to overthink. Just want your thoughts. What do you think could have happened to cause those footprints? What was the scene? Give me some context. What happened there? I need at least 5 people to share the answer. What happened? Say it one more time, please. Dinosaurs. What dinosaurs? Go ahead. Interesting. Animals were approaching a water source.
One was food.
2 different animals approaching the same water source, natural resource of some sort. I like it. Please. Weathering. Okay. Good. What else? Please. Old and new? What do you mean? Old and new coming together. I like it. What else do you see? a little bit louder. Prehistoric events. I saw your hand. Okay. Predator and prey, possible. No wrong answers here. Just want to know what you see. What else? Give me a couple more. These are good. Keep going. Give me two more. Please.
Something that occurred a long time ago has a lasting impact.
Something that occurred a long time ago has a lasting impact. I love it. One more. Leaders and followers. Good. Good. And I'll come right here and then over here. Two different animals running from something and going in the same direction. I like it. And last. I love it. Awesome. So, again, we're digging to make room for this new upgraded baseball field we're going to get. We're looking at a topographical view. We're looking down on these footprints. Are you with me? We keep digging a little bit more. We have more of a complete picture. Now this is what we see. So my question to you now is, does this confirm what you originally thought? Does it refute it a little bit? Show of hands, just really quickly. It confirms your original suspicion. This confirms what you originally thought. Show of hands, it kind of refutes it. Maybe I don't know.
Kind of refute mine.
Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Now, we started here. We dig up a little bit more, and this is what we have. Now we keep digging, and this is the final picture.
Oh, wait. Hold on a second. Mine is right then.
What's wrong? What's the, oh? What is that about?
Somebody didn't make it.
Talk to me. What happened? Talk to me. What do you see? It looks like one consumed the other.
There was a fight.
Violence. Okay. 9:30 in the morning in violence. If that's what you see, that's what you see. It's no problem at all. There are no wrong answers. Anybody else agree with that? Go ahead.
One flew off.
Came together. Maybe could have separated. Okay. What else? What are some possibilities in the back? The little one could have flown away.
Yeah.
There we go. Awesome. I heard somebody say one time, perhaps maybe like the little one got on the big one's back or something like that, or perhaps the big one was a kangaroo and they got into the pouch. There's a lot of different scenarios and possibilities to this. Are no wrong answers. Can I show you something about this though?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back. Let's reset this picture. Once again, I told you that there's construction happening. They're digging, and these are the rocks that we see. Okay, and I asked you to write down what your response was. I want to encourage you to look at this from two different sides. The first being logic versus emotion. The second being perspective. Let's look at this logically speaking. And please don't overthink this. This is not a trick question. Okay, are you ready? Okay. On the left or the right, which animal is bigger? The left. This is not a trick question. Left or right? Which one do you think? Okay, we're all in agreement. Likely the animal on the left is likely bigger. Okay, so if the animal on the left is likely bigger, should it be heavier or lighter than the animal on the right? It should be heavier. That's logical, right? Okay, so if the animal on the left is likely larger, therefore heavier, should the footprints be darker or lighter? But they're not. So here's what I want to point out about this particular
Different
instance.
times.
Logically speaking, we see that the animal on the left is likely bigger, likely heavier, and therefore should have darker footprints. Yet, when we got here, there was a collective across the room. What could explain why the footprints on the right are darker than the ones on the left? Or some
Different level in the dirt.
We We don't know for sure, but a likely explanation is that these two things never actually happened at the same time. However, when we got here, oh, rest in peace, oh my God. I heard you. You said it, you said it. What am I saying? Logic versus emotion. Logically, you all just walked me through how the animal on the left is likely bigger, heavier, therefore the footprint should be darker, but we also concluded logically that these things likely did not happen at the same time. By the time we got here, we added a story to a set of circumstances that didn't actually happen. Do you see where I'm going? God bless you. We added a story to something that didn't even happen, and somebody died. I'm being extreme, but that's what happened. You see, a lot of times we have to understand how we make sense of the world. A lot of times we like to give ourselves credit for being highly logical beings. I'm educated. I'm educated. And I think logically, and sometimes I get swept away in my emotions, but actually the opposite is true. We are highly emotional beings because we think and react from emotion first, then logic comes in. We make decisions based off emotion and justify with logic. We make decisions based on emotion and justify with logic. Another way to think about this, perspective. It's amazing that I asked you all to write down your responses. I went around the room just to kind of take a look inside your mind. Just tell me what you see. If I were to collect this data, I'm a researcher, I like to look at and examine data points. If I were to examine the data, I'd be able to categorize this with the number of people in here, roughly there being anywhere from 7 to 10, maybe 11 different categories of answers. It's amazing to me how we can all look at the same exact picture and see something different. We can all look at the same exact picture and see something different. We can all look at the same student and see. Somebody might miss that one right there. We can all look at the same student and see something different. And because we see something different, we are going to respond to that student differently. And because we are going to respond to that student differently, they are going to respond to our response. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? One of the things I want you to understand in the learning environment, regardless of the capacity at which you serve, you are the thermostat. You are the thermostat, meaning you determine the temperature in the room. And too often, many of us act like the temperature and we respond to what's happening instead of create the environment that we want. What I want to encourage you to do is understand you control the temperature in that room, and everybody should be able to respond to you. When you understand that, you take control of the control that you have to influence student behavior, understanding the science of what forces students sometimes, and I'm using that word with intent, that forces students to respond the way that they do sometimes. And knowing the art of what it takes to manage those relationships and prevent those things from happening in the first place, you can work magic. Let me show you a picture real quickly. Okay? The goal when we are instructing our students is to get information to this part of the brain, right? What's that called? Prefrontal cortex. This is the thinking brain. This is the objective. The information is to get data. Data comes in around this part right here, and processes up the brain and gets filtered through certain things, and depending on what that information is going to depend on where the information is going to go. Depending on what the information is and how the student perceives it is going to depend on where that information goes. Our brains are very, very complex organs, extremely complex. Random question for you. There are a lot of things around us that can stimulate us. Any given time in the environment, there are over 1 million sensory things that can cause us to react. 1 million sensory input items, whether it is the slides, whether it is something inside your body, whether it is something that your finger is touching, whether it is the pen that you're holding, the computer that you're tapping keys on, the person that is sitting next to you that is moving, the gum that is in your mouth. There are over 1 million. 1 million stimuli that we could pay attention to at any given point, but if we did, our minds would explode. We can't process that amount of information at the same time. With all the information that is around us to process, how much do we actually pay attention to? We pay attention to 1%. We pay attention to 1% of the environment that is around us. Now, what that 1% is, depends. What that 1% is, it depends. See, what happens when stimulus, any sort of stimulus, sensory information, when it comes into the brain, it processes through a filter called the reticular activating system. Anybody ever familiar with that? The reticular activating system, RAS. Okay. That is a filter. That filters what you see and what you don't. Example, I was in college, went to a wonderful institution called Hampton University, and I was broke. When I got out of college and I started teaching, I had a little bit of a regular income. So now that I have some income, it's time for me to upgrade some things. At that particular time in my life, I had a car. It wasn't the most reliable car. It was what I call an A to B vehicle. You know what an A to B vehicle is? What's an A to B? Meaning you go from point A to point B, and that's it. A to B, B to A. Home to work, work, back home. There is no C, D, E, F, and G. The rest of the alphabet does not exist for me. From work, home, home to work. That is it. So now that I have some income, I'm going to upgrade. I need a more reliable vehicle. And so at that particular time in my life, everything was pointing me towards a nice, safe, gas-efficient Toyota Camry.
Okay.
Wonderful. Went to the Toyota dealership, spoke with the gentleman there, got the sports package because I'm young, fly, and free. I need the most of the sound system. I pull off that lot. I get to my house. I lived in a townhouse community, so it's a nice, large parking lot. Put my car in park. Man, I did not notice 3 of our neighbors also have Toyota Camrys. Interesting. Get to work the next day. Park in the parking lot I've been parking at for months.
Yeah.
8 of my other co-workers have Toyota Camrys.
Yeah, you notice it now.
These are things that have been there the entire time. But my brain filtered that information out because it did not have relevance to me. I did not see it. Now, this is an aside but related point. There are a lot of things that are happening in the learning environment that we are not seeing just because it may not be relevant to us. That's a different conversation. We'll get into that in just a second. But sensory input information that comes into your brain, it is filtered. And we only pay attention to 1% at any given time of information that we are exposed to. My job right now is to be that 1%. Are you with me? Yes. So with that, we have the sensory input information that filters through a reticular activating system, and then it either goes through the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of the brain that is going to determine which direction, up or down. Up or down, meaning it goes up to the prefrontal cortex or down to the lower brain. If the information is perceived as valuable, relevant, it goes up to the thinking brain to process. If it is a perceived threat, it goes down to the lower brain, and immediately, without even being aware of it, it signals a fight, flight, freeze response. Without even being aware of it. This, and I use that word with intention, perceived threat. This is the root, one of the root causes for so many behavior issues in the learning environment. Because when the information should be going up, it's actually going down. And it triggers fight, flight, freeze. Not fight, flight, freeze in the way you might think. See, fight, flight, freeze, some of us think about running, being scared, not doing anything at all, but in a learning environment, you've seen this. You've seen a student become aggressive. You've seen students that just zone out. You've seen students that can't seem to focus because their body has signaled a stress in some way, shape, or form. Their body is perceiving something that is not in line with what they need to survive. Your brain's priority is to keep you alive, and anything that it perceives as a threat to that is not going to go up to help you process information and think. It is automatically going to go down so that you can survive. And things that can trigger the survival responses, any perceived stress, boredom, threat to your social status, lack of food, all of these things can trigger fight, flight, freeze responses. And this is what we see when we see students that get up and start walking around, students that are talking when they shouldn't be and they should be focused, students that are just there but not there. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's what's happening. In real time, what you're seeing are students who have been triggered in some way, shape, or form. Now, what I want to do is help you understand what some of those triggers can be and how to prevent them. What we want to do is we want the sensor input information to come up through the reticular activating system, through that amygdala, and when it gets to the amygdala, we don't want it to go down. Which direction do we want it to go? Which direction do we want it to go?
Thinking.
Up. The brain is a very, very, very interesting organ, and it does a lot of things to help us, but it can also work against you if you're not careful. If you're not careful, it can put you in situations that you may not be ready for. The brain does a lot of things. We all know about the voluntary and involuntary things that it can do. If I tell you to stand up right now, you would use your legs and you send them a signal and you would stand up. It's a voluntary reaction. But I don't have to tell you to breathe. That's an involuntary reaction. You're all familiar with that. The brain does a lot of other things in the background. Deciding what information gets filtered through that activating system. Deciding what it is that you're going to focus on. Deciding what it is that you need to put energy towards. Right now, your brain represents, it's about 1 to 2 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe up to 3 pounds. Roughly, depending on your body mass index, less than 10.5%. Any given day, less than 5%. But your brain uses 20% of your calories. Your brain uses 1/5 of your energy to process information to help you survive. 1/5, but it weighs significantly less than that. So it has to account for things. It has to take in this information and it has to help you manage this energy. One of the ways that it does that is it puts things in a pattern for you so that you do not have to think about it. Your brain is very, very good at putting things on autopilot for you so that you do not have to think. Have you ever driven a car? When you're driving, let's just say it's your first day at a new building. First day of the school year, never been here before, so I get in my car, and I turn my car on, and I drive to work. And on that first drive, you're hyper-aware and very aware of everything that is happening around you. Every intersection, every store, here's a 7-Eleven, here's a corner store, here's a light, here's a stop sign. Here's the grocery store. You're paying attention to all of these things. Fast forward a couple of months, fast forward a couple of years. You drive to work, you go home. You drive to work, you go home. Have you ever gotten home at the end of the workday? Turn the car off and forget how you got there?
Yeah.
Because your brain put it into a pattern for you so that you do not consciously have to think about it. Driving through an intersection. You might be listening to your music, having a good old time, and you get on the other side of the intersection. Wait, hold on, was that light green? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
It's because your brain put it in a pattern for you so that you do not have to think about it. You've done it so many times, you don't need to use conscious energy to do that. I've got it, I know what to do. That's what happens. The same thing happens in the learning environment. You see, if you can operate a 2-ton vehicle on autopilot, why wouldn't you engage with students that way too? We get to the learning environment, we do things on autopilot. I want to encourage you to turn the autopilot off, to make sure that we're seeing things right in front of us that sometimes our brain may filter out. Are you with me so far? See, let me help you understand a couple of different things. When students come into our learning environment, they're seeking several things, whether you realize it or not. I want to help you understand these 3 concepts a little bit better and at depth so we can avoid having those reactions go down and help them to go up. Is that okay? Yes or no? Is that okay? Yes or no?
Yes.
First thing being connection, right? Understand this. One of the reasons why this session for us is better in person than it is over Zoom is because we are relational beings by nature. We are relational beings by nature. We need to be around other people. That is a biological need. We need to have communication. We need to have connection. We need to have relationships that are mutually beneficial with other human beings. It is a survival mechanism. Unfortunately, what happens in the learning environment, us being a relational species, but you get into the classroom and now we have to sit in these straight rows. And I can't talk to anybody. I'm not allowed to work with anyone. I have to wait until my hand is called on, if I even get called on, or if I don't feel safe in that environment, I might not even raise my hand at all. And this promotes disconnection. The way that our school system is structured, it is structured for independence, what we are built for interdependence. These are some of the things that trigger those responses to go down instead of up. We are built to lean on, depend on, work with one another. And when students are not given that opportunity, it triggers a stress response. The information that should be going up goes which direction? Down, because they're disconnected. Am I making sense? Just a little bit. Let me provide you with another example. March 2020, when everything shut down. It's a really, really difficult time for a lot of us. Would you agree?
Yeah.
We learned a lot during that time, and one of the most valuable lessons that I took from that is how important it was for us to be together. Because there was only but so much Zoom that I couldn't take. I don't want to see you on the screen no more. It's nothing personal. Think about when things started to open back up a little bit, and you got to see that person, and you gave them the most warm embrace that you could. Seeing family that you were not allowed to see for so long, and being in their physical presence did something for you. Am I telling the truth? Mm-hmm. And see, during those times at the height of the pandemic, when we were forced to quarantine and be alone, it did not feel good. It did not feel natural. We're not supposed to be alone. And when we get into the classroom, whether you believe it or not, when we put students in situations where they cannot relate and connect to others, we recreate pandemic conditions on a daily basis. Those students need to interact with you and their peers. It is a biological need, whether you were taught that, whether you knew that or not. And when students do not get the opportunity to connect and work with and lean on and depend on one another, it can trigger stress responses. Information that should be going up goes which way? Down. This, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you accept it or not, I am telling you the truth. We are in a relationship building business. Period. Ask any educator that you know that has a good relationship with some of those students, and they can get them to do things. Like, how the heck did you, what? Because they have a relationship. And that is something that you can do as well. Can I tell myself for a second? I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started teaching, I made a lot of mistakes, just like most of us. But I made a cardinal mistake. It was such an egregious mistake. To this day, it eats me up. When I first got into the learning environment, I found out about an available position. So I applied. Sent the principal an email. She offered me the opportunity to come in and interview. Coming out of college, at that particular time in my life, I felt my calling was to be in the learning environment and to teach. I'm supposed to pour into the lives of these students. I believe the children are our future. I'm going to teach them well and let them lead the way. That's what I felt in my heart. And so I needed that principal. I needed that assistant principal. I needed that department chair that I was interviewing with to know that I'm supposed to be here. That particular time at the school that I was interviewing, I was a little ways from my house. So this was pre-iPhone, pre-Google Maps days, so I had to get MapQuest and print out the direction. Maybe you didn't have to do that. I'm telling on myself, right?
Yeah, I did.
I print out the MapQuest directions to find where the building is, and I drive there. I'm prepared. I Googled some interview questions, and I practiced responses for almost anything that they could ask me. I had a nice, fresh suit on that day. I did what any young man would do. I got a good quality suit from Burlington Coat Factory. And I walked into that interview with my head held high. I had a briefcase in my hand. I kid you not. We don't even use briefcases in education. But I needed to let them know that I was serious. Walked out of that interview and left it all on the floor. If I don't get this role, there's nothing else that I could have done. I'm not supposed to be here. That's how I truly and honestly felt. I get in my car. I drive down the street. My phone rings. That time I had a flip phone, so I opened my phone like this. Hello? It was the principal. Congratulations, we'd like to offer you the role. I'm going to teach. I'm proud of myself. I'm excited. I'm elated. So I close my phone, pop, open it back up, pop. Call one of my friends. Hey, remember that interview I told you I had? Yeah. It was today. The interview went really, really well. As I was driving down the street, the principal called me and offered me the job. Friend on the other line, congratulations. I knew you could do. Hey, where are you going to teach? And I would tell them I'm going to be at this school. Ooh. at that school with those kids. That's the response I got. I'm high. I'm just having fun. The dopamine is flowing right now. I'm feeling good. I'm not going to let that bring me down. Close the phone, open it back up. Pow! Call somebody else. Hey, remember that interview I told you I had? Just left there. Offered me the job. I'm going to teach. Congratulations. I knew you could do it. Hey, where are you going to teach? I told them what school. Ooh.
Oh, Lord.
Make sure you lock your doors.
Yes.
Y'all laughing, I'm serious. Now I'm concerned. What is this that I have signed up for? Coupled with the fact that my first day of teaching was not in August or September. My first day of teaching was in October.
Oh, Lord.
Because somebody was there.
Left.
And decided they no longer wanted to be there. That's why the position became vacant in the first place.
I know what you was getting.
And so for me, I'm processing all of this. Okay, hold on 1 second. These kids are stealing. It's a bad neighborhood. They just ran that teacher out of there. I need this job. So I'm going in there from day one, and I had one mission.
Frankel.
I had one mission and one mission only. I let those students know from the moment that I stepped foot in that classroom, I am not the one. Period. Oh, classroom management accolades that I got. Oh, such good first year teacher with excellent classroom management. I got applauded in faculty meetings. I wore that as a badge of honor. Yes, I am, actually. I'm good at classroom management. First year teacher. Better luck next time. True story. I didn't have to worry about the administrators coming down line into the hallway and hearing foolishness happening. Not in my classroom, because I'm not the one. Not me. I didn't have to worry about a lot of discipline issues. I can count for 2 years. I can count on one hand how many discipline infractions and referrals I had. 1 hand. Why? Because I'm not who? I'm not the one. Until.
Jonathan.
Actually, no. Believe it or not, it wasn't that. It's actually quite the opposite. I'm the term office loosely. It was more like a room closet with a phone. But I'm in my office and my phone rings, and it's one of my 6th grade students' parents. She says, hello, Mr. Woodly, how are you? Good. She said, I'm going to be honest with you. She said, my daughter's scared in the classroom. And that wasn't the way that I anticipated that exchange going. Here I am, supposed to, just like they say, teach the children of our future, teach them well and let them lead the way. That's what I'm supposed to do. But I was using fear as a teaching tool. Can I be really honest with you for a second? I was using fear as a teaching mechanism in a school where a lot of my students looked like me. Because that's what I thought that I was supposed to do. I thought that's, in that particular community, in that neighborhood, I thought that's what they needed. Mind you, they is me. I fell right into the system. Fell right into it. For 2 years, I taught, and to this day it bothers me about the opportunities that I missed to connect with students. The opportunities that I did not create for students to feel safe in my environment. Opportunities where I should have been filtering that information to go up, and every single time it was going down. For my students, because I used fear so much, that fight, flight, or freeze response was more so the freeze. A lot of them didn't move, a lot of them didn't engage. And that's what we're seeing as good classroom management. Are you with me? Now that I know better, I do better. I changed my ways so fast. That next year, I kid you not, that next year I made so many changes. My students, not only did they come up academically and win state level recognition, I was teaching in the state of Virginia at that time, they got a Blue Ribbon Award for their achievement. That next year from that one change. Then after that, because of that, I got Teacher of the Year from that one change. It was because I began to recognize what was in front of me, because there were valuable assets that were right in front of me the entire time I did not see. And one of the most valuable tools that I used was creating relationships that were mutually beneficial with each and every one of my students, so that they felt seen and safe in my classroom. One of the analogies that I use, sometimes I do a lot of traveling and I work with a lot of schools and school districts, and so sometimes I try to eat healthy, but sometimes I'm in a rush. So I try not to eat fast food too often, but sometimes I just don't have any other opportunities. You ever been in your car and you travel, and you're trying to get some lunch really quickly? Might go to McDonald's. Depending on what neighborhood you're in, it's going to depend on what that experience is like. You pull up to the McDonald's, roll the window down, and you sit there and wait. Hello? Go ahead with your order. All right, I see what this is going to be. Smile. How you doing? I'd like a number 1, please, with Sprite. Pull it around to the next window. Can I also, I'm not done. Hold on 1 second. They just rushing me through. I get to the next window, smile because these people have your food. Give them the card, hand it back to you, no thank you, no. Get to the next window, they give you your bag, stuff is missing. Excuse me, hold on. Can I have my fries, please? You smile because again, these people have your food. You drive off. Wasn't the most pleasant experience, but you get through. But then you take that same scenario, but you go maybe across town to a good Chick-fil-A. Got Chick-fil-A out here? Tell you something. From the moment that your vehicle pulls into that lot,
It's a
it is
experience.
hugged with the warm embrace of Chick-fil-A. Am I lying? Before you even get to that speaker, there's a well-dressed attendant with a red shirt on, freshly pressed black pants. Hello, it is a wonderful 60-degree day Any compliments? Well, actually, yes, please. Chick-fil-A sauce? How many? Like, the details. That's important. They take your card, but I feel in my heart that if they did not have to charge, they would. That's how I honestly feel. You get around to the window, they hand you your bag. You don't even look in there, you know that bag is right. Everything is in there that you need. They hand you your food, thank you so much, and what do they say? My pleasure, every single time. The question is, as the thermostat in that learning environment, do your students get, go ahead with your order, or do they get my pleasure? Which one do they get because you set the temperature in that learning environment? You are in control of what happens in that learning environment. Do the students feel connected to you? Do they feel valued with you? Do they feel seen by you? We talk about this idea of culture. Culture is one of those things that I know for a fact everybody in here we value. And we understand its importance. I'm just looking around the landscape of this room. And I can see that there are many different cultures, backgrounds represented. Right here in the confines of this room. It's one of the things that makes this district so good. Different lived experiences, different beliefs, different values. And just because of those different values, we may see things differently. And that is okay. But just like we see things differently, I'm willing to bet you there are a lot of things that we see that are the same. Simply because of geographically where we live. Example. Have you ever been in a situation, let's just say you're online, on your way to work, you stop at Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts. Should have been there 10 minutes ago, but you need your coffee. You're online, waiting for the barista to take your order. And you can't really understand why, but you can just feel it in your spirit that the person behind you is just a little bit too close. Has it ever happened to you? In that particular moment, that person violated you. Socially, everybody knows there's a 36-inch bubble that is around me at all times that you are not to enter unless I invite you. Everybody knows that. Or do they? Let me ask you a question. When it comes to an example like that, when we talk about these sort of social violations, somebody in your personal space, is that something that you were explicitly taught when you sat down as a 5-year-old and your parents said to you, don't let anybody within 36 inches of your personal space? Or was it more of a learned behavior from your environment? A lot of times, if you really think about some of these things, they're learned behaviors. They're learned behaviors that are unwritten. And they're unwritten rules that we expect other people to know. Can I show you something about culture? Let me show you something about culture. Okay. For many of us, we understand that culture is important. And we can see many of the cultural differences that represent. If you look at that top row, that green section right there. This is the part of culture that you're most familiar with. Things that you see. Example, music. Things that you hear. Games. Food. Clothing. Dialect. Slang. Kids talking about this. That's cat. What is cat? I don't have a cat. Like, what? That's all culture. I know for me, when I was in elementary school, every single year, I used to love, we had an annual cultural celebration. The assignment was for everybody to bring in a dish that represents your background or your heritage. And sometimes parents would bring in the dish and they would tell the story about what that food means for you and your family. Sometimes they would even wear traditional clothing or garbs, maybe even play music. We did that every year and it was wonderful. Has anybody ever had a similar experience where you had that kind of elementary school celebration? It was wonderful. Understanding that now from my perspective, what I understand about that is this. Was it important? Absolutely. Was it valuable? 100%. But you know what it also was? It was limited. It was limited because it only acknowledged culture at a surface level, things that you can see or hear. When we sat down This is where things get interesting, because now we start to introduce those unwritten rules. Those unwritten rules that have emotional consequences. Those unwritten rules that have emotional consequences that we expect other people to know without even telling them. In my classroom, with my students have just handed in a homework assignment. So I'm putting that homework assignment into the grade book. My students are in groups, and one of my groups of students in the back corner, there was a young lady whose assignment I was missing. I could not find her. Looking through the stack of papers, I don't see it. Could have sworn she handed it to me. I want to make sure she gets credit. I don't see it. So I call out to her group, Kelly, come here real quick. She doesn't hear me, so I call a little bit, Kelly. She looks up, what? Tell y'all something right now. There are two key people. Their names are Calvin and Monica. They are not educators. They are not researchers. They are not teachers, principals, superintendent. None of that. They are my parents. And see, in Calvin and Monica's household, one thing that you did not do was respond to an adult by saying,
Yes.
sometimes growing up, I would forget. And then when I got up off the ground, I was less likely to do it the next time. That was a behavior that I took through adolescence, childhood, teenage years, adult years, right into the classroom. And at that moment, when that young lady responded to me that way, I saw red. Who she thinks she's talking to? I'm the only adult in the room, but I look, perhaps there's somebody behind me, because there's no way she's talking to me. At that moment, I had a physiological response. My body alerted me, you are being disrespected, you need to react. Remember that 95% I told you about just a few minutes ago? Defiance, disruption, and disrespect. I can easily categorize that in one of those three categories, depending on how I'm feeling. I can easily go ahead and get that paperwork and write that right on up. I'm being disrespected and contribute to that 95%. Done. And one thing saved me in that moment is having the wherewithal, the emotional intelligence to understand I was being triggered at that moment. Understanding, having the self-awareness and the self-management to say, okay, who saw 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, like all of that. In that moment, so that I can understand what the intent was versus the impact. Don't miss that. What was the intent versus the impact? Was her intent to be disrespectful? When I was being honest with myself, the answer was no. Even though my body told me I was being disrespected in that moment. Am I making sense? Yeah. That was hard. That was hard. The lady came up to my desk, just as nice as she wanted to be. I forgot what I was doing. I had to send her back. I'll get it later. I don't even know what I want right now. Let me recalibrate emotionally. And then I had to have a conversation with her after that. I had to have a conversation with her after that for an honest reason, because while I was able to catch myself in that moment, her next teacher might not. And I had to have a conversation with her and let her know, although you were technically not wrong, I want to encourage you to use some alternative or replacement phrases, because some adults consider that disrespectful. Instead of me writing that young lady up and contributing to that 95%, I tried to set her up for success. And you know what that did? That added to our relationship. Now, did she switch her behavior immediately? No. Did she say it again after that? Yes. But you know what happened the next time? Hey, Kelly, what? Yes. Because I laid that foundation. Are you seeing what I'm saying here? Take out a piece of paper. I want you to write down something real quick. All right. I want to show you something. The goal is, again, to get the information through the activating system. And when it goes through the particular activating system, that filter, it gets to the switchboard of the brain, the amygdala. We want that information not to go down, we want it to go up. some of the contributing factors to whether or not that information goes down versus up are your relationship status with the students, creating an environment where you are the thermostat, creating an environment where students feel safe, seen, and valued, understanding culture and how this influences our emotions can show up in the learning environment. Last but not least, type of communication. On your piece of paper, I want you to do something for me. I want you to write down a big plus sign or something like this. I want you to write down a plus sign. On the top of that plus sign, I want you to write the word outgoing. On the bottom of that plus sign, I want you to write the word reserve. Outgoing, reserve, top, bottom, respectively. Here is the task. As an aside, you know how they say students don't follow directions a lot of times. You don't follow directions. Never mind. So, here's what I need you to do. Listen carefully, please. Top or bottom. Choose one. Consider yourself more naturally outgoing or more naturally reserved. Top or bottom. Put an X at the top or an X at the bottom. Think. What instinctively do you feel? I'm naturally more outgoing or naturally more reserved? Top or bottom? Please don't. Oh, well, it just depends on it. Please don't do that. Top or the bottom? Choose. Next. Left or right? Do you consider yourself somebody that is more task or objective oriented, meaning you prefer to get things done, or are you more social and you prefer to be around people? Left or right?
It's easy.
Left is the word task, right is the word people. Do you prefer to get things done, or do you prefer to be around people? Top or bottom, left or right. Does anybody need those instructions one more time?
I got it.
It's not a problem. Somebody's struggling right now. I know you are. I know. I get it. I'm forcing you to be decisive here, and it's for a reason. The next thing that I would like you to do is we're going to identify these four quadrants. In the upper left-hand quadrant, quadrant 1, I want you to write the letter D. Upper left-hand quadrant, quadrant number 1, write the letter D. Then go to the right and write the letter I. Right under the letter I want you to write the letter S. And then last but not least, in the lower left-hand corner, the letter C. Starting from the upper left-hand corner, top, going clockwise, you should have D, then the letter I, the letter S, the letter C. Make sure it is right. Wrong, you want to throw everything off. And if you've done this correctly, your X's, you should have 2 X's or identifying marks. You should identify 1 quadrant. Watch this. Writing utensils down, please. The letter D was your identified letter. Stand up. Now, here's what I need you to do. Quickly and quietly move right over here, please. Letter D.
We gotta move. Let's see what we got.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say psychopath, but it's better.
Now, for you, the letter I was the letter that you, or the quadrant that you identified. Stand up, please, letter I.
And the eyes.
Good. Quickly and here's the key word. Quickly and what? Quietly. Here. Watch them start talking. Watch. It happens every single time. Thank you very much. The letter S was the letter or the quadrant that you identified. Please stand.
Grab my S's.
For the letter S, I want you to stand opposite this group in the back over there.
I gotta go way over there.
Letter S is in the back over there. Back far right corner, my left. And then last but not least, the letter C was the letter that you identified along this last remaining corner. I want to show you something about what this means.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Oops, sorry. I'm in the corner.
Letter D, raise your hand, please. Good. Letter I, raise your hand, please. Awesome. Letter S, raise your hands, please. Perfect. Letter C, raise your hand, please. Thank you very much. Now, let me show you a couple of things about what this means.
A lot of C's.
Essentially, what we're identifying are broad behavior and communication characteristics. We're identifying broad behavior and communication characteristics. I want to show you something about yourself that might explain some things. Notice that I have you patterned the same exact way as the quadrants, D, I, S, and C. You see that? Okay, watch with me. We're going to go through this very quickly. Letter D tends to be people that are described as direct and dominant.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
Hey,
Let's see. This type of person, watch. This type of person, I want you to think on this side of the room, these are people that tend to be more outgoing. And over here, the focus is on getting things done as opposed to being with people. There's a reason. And for this type of person tends to be very action-oriented. They have a vision. I see something that needs to get done. I don't really need a plan. Let's just go do it. A lot of times, these types of people do well with authority because they are the authoritative figure. And because of that, sometimes the way that they communicate is, if I have something on my mind, I'm just going to tell you what it means. I'm going to tell you what it's going to say.
Sure.
Am I in the ballpark? Watch me work. So, coming over here. Again, this side of the room, very outgoing, but now we're talking about people that tend to focus on people as opposed to getting things done. The eyes tend to be more interactive and inspirational and influential because their focus is on people over getting things done, and they're naturally more outgoing. Typically, it represents about a third of the population. These are the type of people that have active minds. They seek to infuse play and positive energy with everything that they do. In other words, they play too much.
Oh, Lord.
Look at that. No such thing as playing too much. That's what I'm talking about. A lot of times, because of the focus on people, they're highly persuasive. They're fun and good people to be around. You need an event, you need something. Here's where you're going right over here. Am I telling the truth? Just a little bit. Okay. Now we're coming over here. Watch this. I'm going to switch my approach just a little bit. Hello. These are my people that tend to be a little more reserved. My S's, hello my S's. The focus tends to be more reserved, but still focus on people. I love people. S's are very supportive and very sincere. They like things that are predictable. Please don't come changing a lot of things on me. I'm a good support system. I don't need to be in the front yelling at people. I'm okay in the background. I thrive by just pouring into others. If you need a helping hand, if you need an ear, if you need somebody to lean on, who can you lean on? Lean on me. Even sometimes to my detriment. I'm going to help you before I help myself. But they're very loyal. They're very good at building deep, compassionate relationships and extremely trustworthy. Am I in the ballpark just a little bit? Yes. Last but not least, my letter C's.
That's
These
most
are
of
the type of people right here, once again, more reserved, but prefer to get things done. I want to be around all these people, leave me alone. A lot of times they're more cautious and calculated. These are the type of people that when something needs to be done, it's going to be done right because I'm going to take my time. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Who said we need to do this? Where did these instructions come from? How do you know? How long do I have? They're asking all the questions because I need this input so that this is going to be right. Because when you get it from me, it's going to be accurate. Am I telling the truth just for me? Why is this important? This is important because our preferences with communication a lot of times dictate our behavior, which dictates how we communicate. It's a circle. How I communicate dictates how I behave, and how I behave dictates how I communicate. Are you familiar with the concept of the golden rule?
Yeah.
What is the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Amen? Amen.
However,
Now, when it comes to human decency and respect, it's a wonderful, wonderful rule. When it comes to communication, it's flawed, though. Because when it comes to communication, you talk to people the way that they want to be talked to, not the way that you want to talk. So if I'm over here and I'm somebody that's very direct, like you know that phrase, it's not what you say, but how you say it?
yeah.
A lot of times they have difficulty with that. So if I have something to say and it's on my mind, I'm going to say it. But if I'm over here, oh my gosh, why are you being so mean? If I'm over here, I'm asking a lot of questions. Who, what, why, when, and why. If I'm over here, forget the questions, let's party. Am I making a little bit of sense? And so when we understand this information about one another, it empowers you. Because you know what the general expectations are of how to get that person to perform and how to get that person to communicate effectively. And just the same way that it applies for you, it also applies for those babies as well. Take a seat real quick and show you something.
Alrighty. Shift this way. Shift this way. Now shift this way.
My time is almost up, and I want to leave you with this thought. As you make your way back to your seats, I want to highlight the fact that how we communicate.
I'm just trying to go this way. Sorry.
And for many of our students, some of these
Uh-oh, traffic jam.
disturbing factors are at the root of some of the behaviors that we see. We talk about this idea.
Maybe if I slid the chair in. There we go.
We talk about extrinsic motivating factors versus intrinsic motivating factors. And for a lot of our students, and for most human beings in general, the focus a lot of times is on extrinsic rewards. But you know, the way that you drive good behavior and get that dopamine flowing is the intrinsic value. And for students that fit into these categories, which for the most part everyone does in some way, shape, or form, those are the rewards. Because if I'm that D, I'm somebody that's naturally competitive. I thrive with authority. I like to take charge. Let me be great. If I'm somebody that is a C, it's very detail-oriented. I like to ask questions. Please don't get upset with me when I'm asking you questions, but I need this information to know how to do what I'm supposed to do. Am I making sense? If I'm somebody that's that S, I'm reserved and friendly and compassionate, and I sit there, please don't get upset when I don't volunteer to get up and read and act out something. That's not my lane. And if I'm over here as this parrot and I need to talk, I have a lot of energy. I'm very optimistic. Please don't clip my wings when I need to move. You have to understand what it is that is behind the behavior. When you understand this information, it empowers you to make better and more informed decisions. But let me leave you with this. I'll tell you this one story. was one time there was this principal, I'm going to get out of your way. There was this principal who had a school that had a little bit of a challenge to it. Had some interviews and filled the vacant positions. So with those vacant positions, the school year began. And there was a teacher that decided that they didn't want to be there, similar to my story. After the first quarter, that teacher left. The principal went back to the stack of resumes from over the summer, people he had interviewed, and he remembered one young lady that had done very, very well, but he just was not in a position to offer her the role. He said, I'm going to call her. Called that young lady, offered her the role, and she got into the classroom. She got into the classroom and started teaching. She started engaging with the students. Time went by, second quarter went by, third quarter went by. So the principal was now looking at the data, and from this same group of students who were not doing so well, who ran that person out of there before, they were improving. This young lady was a first-year educator. Had not had teaching experience in that school or any other school before, but her students were outperforming and outpacing everybody. The principal was very confused. What's going on? Called the young lady into his office after the third quarter. Third quarter assessment data came out. What your students are doing so well. Help me understand what's happening right now. The lady said, I know they ran lunch, have a lot of energy, but I knew they would do it. I saw the note that you left me. She said, what note? She said, the note that you left me. I saw the note that you left me. And that told me everything that I needed to know. He said, what note? What are you talking about? I didn't write you any note. She said, this one. This is the note that I saw. The note with all the students' IQs on it. She said, oh my goodness.
More scores.
All of those numbers, those are not the students' IQs, those are their locker numbers. You mean to tell me that each and every one of those students is doing well in spite of you wait, hold on. What is happening right here? Let me tell you what happened. That young lady got into that learning environment and expected those students to do well. That young lady got into that environment and she was the thermostat. That young lady got into that environment and turned that chaos into calm. I'm here to tell you that you can do the same thing. You can be that thermostat that determines whether those students go up or whether those students go down. And I need you to know that going into 2023 and into 2024, those students can go up if you want them to. The question is, do you? That's not rhetorical. Do you want the students to do well?
Yes.
Do you want the students to do well?
Yes.
Do you want the students to do well? Yes. And for 2023 and 24, be that thermostat that positions those babies to do their best. Because you know that they can do it. They believe that you can do it because you believe in them. Get the most out of them. They will meet your expectations as long as you do not lower the bar. We lower barriers, not the bar. My name is Dr. Woodley. I hope that this information has been useful to you in some way, shape, or form. I wish you Godspeed and blessings for this upcoming year. Please do me a favor, give yourselves a round of applause. Dr.